The chandelier lights glimmered like stars across the vast wedding hall, their brilliance reflecting off the polished marble floors where a red carpet stretched to the altar. The air was heavy with the scent of roses and perfume, with whispers of excitement from guests dressed in their finest. It should have been a night of celebration, a night where two souls were joined in love and promises. But for Alina, who stood just beyond the grand doors, clutching her rounded belly with trembling hands, it was the night her entire world crumbled before her eyes. She had never imagined she would be here like this, uninvited, unwanted, carrying the proof of her marriage while her husband stood inside, ready to wed another woman. The very thought made her chest tighten with pain. She had rehearsed this confrontation in her mind countless times, torn between walking away in silence and screaming until her voice broke. But when the doors opened, when her eyes fell upon Armin in his tuxedo smiling at another woman in white, something inside her gave way. She felt her knees weaken, the ground tilt, her vision blur. Her journey to that moment had begun long before the glittering lights and whispered gossip. Alina had once believed in fairy tales. Raised in a modest home with parents who taught her kindness and resilience, she carried dreams not of riches but of love that was steady and true. When she met Armin, a charming man with an easy laugh and ambitious spirit, she thought she had found her forever. Their courtship was filled with stolen moments, coffee dates under rain-soaked umbrellas, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn, and promises whispered with sincerity that made her believe she was cherished beyond measure. Marriage had been simple but beautiful. They had not much, but their small apartment overflowed with warmth. Alina would cook meals that filled the air with comforting aromas, while Armin spoke of his dreams, opening his own business, traveling the world, building a family. When Alina discovered she was pregnant, joy burst within her heart. She imagined Armin holding their child, his eyes lighting up with pride. She imagined a nursery filled with laughter, midnight feedings turned into shared moments of love. For a while, life felt perfect. But then things began to change. Slowly at first, so subtly that she excused it as stress or fatigue. Armin began working late, his smile faded, his words became curt. He started guarding his phone, stepping into the balcony to take calls, leaving Alina alone at the dinner table with cold plates and colder silence. She told herself it was a phase, that every marriage had seasons of distance. She clung to hope, especially with the child growing inside her. But hope was fragile, and whispers traveled faster than truth. Neighbors murmured about seeing Armin with another woman, tall, elegant, always dressed in perfection. At first Alina refused to believe it. She told herself they were mistaken, that her husband loved her still. Yet the evidence grew undeniable. Nights away, lies that tangled on his tongue, the scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes. The day she confronted him, his silence spoke louder than any denial. He did not admit, but he did not reassure. He walked away, leaving Alina with tears soaking her pillow and a heart that felt like it was shattering piece by piece. Still, she hoped. Perhaps the baby would bring them closer again, perhaps he would remember the love they once had. She wrote letters to him in her journal, prayers more than words, pleading for a miracle. But the miracle never came. Instead, the whispers turned into invitations, an announcement of Armin's wedding, with her still his lawful wife, carrying his child. The shock nearly broke her. She could not eat, could not sleep, her body weakening as grief consumed her. But something inside pushed her forward, a fierce, unyielding love for the child within. She could not let them grow in a world of lies. She had to face the truth, no matter how painful. And so, on the day of the wedding, she dressed simply in a pale dress that clung to her swollen belly, her hair loose, her face pale but determined. She walked slowly to the venue, every step echoing with dread. When she entered, the hall fell silent, the music faltered, and every eye turned toward her. There stood Armin, radiant in his tuxedo, holding the hands of another woman draped in lace and jewels. Their smiles froze as they saw her. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Alina's breath caught, Her heart hammered painfully in her chest, and the room spun. Her vision narrowed, the walls closing in. She felt her child kick weakly inside her as though sensing the storm around them. She reached out for support, but the strength drained from her limbs. And then, with a gasp that silenced the hall, she collapsed onto the cold marble floor. Screams erupted. Chairs scraped against the ground as people rushed forward. Some guests covered their mouths in shock, others whispered in disbelief. The bride clutched her veil, pale with horror, while Armin's face twisted between guilt and panic. For a split second, he held onto his mistress's hand, as though torn between two worlds. Then he released her and ran to Alina's side, his voice breaking as he called her name. But Alina did not respond. Her body was still, her face ghostly pale, her breath shallow. A pool of silence swallowed the room as she was lifted and carried out, her fragile form leaving behind a hall filled with shame and shattered illusions. In that moment, every guest knew the truth. This was not a love story being celebrated. It was a tragedy unfolding before their very eyes. Sparkles, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like this video, share it with friends, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support means the world. Sparkles. The sterile white walls of the hospital corridor stood in sharp contrast to the glittering hall where everything had unraveled. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic, mingled with the low hum of machines and hurried footsteps. Guests who had once laughed and clapped at the wedding now sat in hushed clusters, their faces marked by guilt, pity, and unease. Armin paced back and forth, his tuxedo jacket crumpled in his fists, his hair disheveled, his eyes swollen with tears that refused to fall. He had never imagined his selfish pursuit of pleasure could lead to this, his pregnant wife fighting for her life because of him. Behind the swinging double doors, Alina lay still on a hospital bed, wires attached to her frail body, her belly rising and falling with shallow breaths. Nurses whispered to each other, their expressions tense. The beeping of the monitor was the only reassurance that life still clung to her, that the heartbeat of her unborn child still pulsed faintly in the silence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doctor emerged. His face was grave, his voice steady but laced with weighty compassion. Her collapse was not just from shock, he explained, glancing around at the anxious crowd. She has been under extreme emotional and physical stress. That stress has worsened a condition in her pregnancy that should have been monitored closely. Both she and her child are in danger. If she had been cared for properly, this could have been avoided. The words struck like thunder. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their gazes sliding toward Armin, whose face turned ashen. He felt exposed, naked before their judgment. The doctor continued, "Right now, she needs stability, care, and peace. Any more trauma could take both their lives." His eyes hardened as he fixed on Armin. "Do you understand what this means?" Armin nodded mutely, his throat burning. He wanted to cry out, to beg for forgiveness, but guilt locked his voice inside his chest. As the reality of his choices crashed down on him, the mistress, once radiant in her wedding gown, slipped quietly out of the room, her presence unwelcome, her dreams dissolved. Armin did not even notice. His world was now contained within the four walls of a hospital room where his wife and child clung desperately to life. When he was finally allowed inside, Armin approached the bed slowly. Alina looked almost ethereal, her skin pale against the white sheets, her lips dry, her eyelids fluttering as though caught between dreams and reality. He reached for her hand, but guilt stopped him halfway. Did he have the right to touch her after what he had done? He lowered himself into the chair by her side, burying his face in his palms as tears spilled freely at last. He thought of the nights she had waited for him with meals that went cold, the mornings she had smiled despite exhaustion, the countless sacrifices she had made just to build a home for them. And how had he repaid her? With lies, with abandonment, with betrayal so cruel that it had nearly cost her life. His chest ached with regret so deep it suffocated him. For the first time, he realized he had not only betrayed a wife, He had betrayed a mother and a child who had never asked to be born into such chaos. When Alina stirred, her lashes lifting to reveal eyes clouded with weariness, she did not look at him with the anger he expected. She did not scream, nor weep, nor even acknowledge him. Her lips parted only to whisper a trembling question, "My baby, is my baby alive?" The doctor reassured her softly. "Yes, the baby is safe for now. But you must rest. You must not allow yourself any more stress." Relief washed over her face, and for the first time since her collapse, she managed a faint smile, fragile, trembling, but radiant with love. That smile was not for Armin, nor for anyone else. It was for the tiny heartbeat that still pulsed inside her, the reason she had to keep going. Days blurred into weeks. Alina's strength returned slowly, each day marked by small victories, steady breaths, soft laughter at her nurse's gentle jokes, the warmth of sunlight streaming through the hospital windows. Friends and family rallied around her, bringing homemade meals, flowers, and stories to lift her spirits. They reminded her she was not alone, that she was loved, that she was stronger than the storm she had endured. Armin came every day, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with tears, always with regret. He sat quietly by her side, whispering apologies that dissolved into silence. But Alina no longer responded. She had no more energy to pour into a broken marriage, no more hope to cling to for a man who had proven unworthy. Her silence was not cruelty, it was survival. She had learned in the hardest way that love should never demand the sacrifice of dignity, health, or self-worth. The mistress faded into obscurity, her name now a bitter taste in the mouths of those who had once celebrated her. Guests whispered about the wedding that turned into tragedy, about how love betrayed always comes with consequences. And Armin was left haunted by the emptiness of his choices, his reputation shattered, his heart hollow, and his place in Alina's life reduced to a shadow. Months later, the day arrived. Alina went into labor under the steady glow of hospital lights, her body trembling with the effort of bringing new life into the world. Nurses encouraged her, friends prayed in the waiting room, and Armin stood silently in the corner, his face pale with awe and shame. Hours stretched like years, but at last, the cries of a newborn filled the room, piercing the air with raw, beautiful life. Alina wept as the nurse placed the tiny child in her arms. She looked down at the small face, the fragile fingers, the innocent eyes that blinked up at her as though recognizing the one who had fought so fiercely to protect them. In that moment, every scar, every wound, every betrayal seemed small in comparison to the miracle she cradled. This was her purpose, her redemption, her new beginning. Armin's eyes brimmed with tears as he watched, but he did not step forward. He knew the child belonged to Alina's love, not his regret. When she finally looked up, her gaze was firm. There was no hatred, only clarity. She had chosen her path. It was not with him. Word of Alina's story spread among those who had once witnessed her collapse. People spoke of her strength, her resilience, her ability to rise even when the world tried to break her. She became a quiet inspiration, proof that betrayal cannot destroy a spirit determined to survive. She raised her child with courage and tenderness, teaching them that they were not born from brokenness, but from a love stronger than any storm, the love of a mother who refused to give up. As for Armin, he carried his guilt like a shadow that never left. He tried to rebuild his life, but the emptiness never truly lifted. For him, the image of Alina holding their child would forever be a reminder of what he had thrown away. And so, the story did not end in bitterness, but in strength. Alina's collapse had once silenced a room, but her rise filled countless hearts with hope. She proved that even when love fails, life gives us new reasons to fight, to heal, and to believe again. Sparkles, if this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your comments inspire us more than you know, and they help us continue sharing stories that matter. Sparkles. Speech balloon special request. Comment below, if you were in Alina's place, would you choose forgiveness, or would you walk away to build a new beginning?